Hello everyone and welcome to another exciting Art of War tier list Tuesday. Today we are ranking all of the units available to one of the strongest armies in the meta right now, Chaos Knights.
Yeah, Chaos Knights have been ripping up the competitive scene recently, and we're here to go through their datasheets in detail and tell you which ones are good and which ones are less good.
Indeed. Of course, I'm excited about our brand new Chaos Knight Codex. I've been having a lot of fun with it. It's a really nice change of pace from where Chaos Knights were in the past and from, playing the different armies right now. So I'm super excited that we have such a strong Chaos Knight release and that we actually have options in our datasheets. So let's go ahead and dive right into this. Let's start ranking the datasheets. Of course, if you want to hear about the Forge World options, we will also be talking about Imperial Armor as well, not just the Chaos Knights Codex. Should we kick it off?
Absolutely, let's do it. What's up first?
The Army Painter is my favorite hobby company in the entire world. My desk is literally full of Army Painter products, and it takes me from being an average painter to putting above tabletop standard models out into the tournament scene. Not only that, but the Army Painter has sponsored more competitive play than any other hobby company in the industry. They allow us to keep doing the things that we do. If you enjoy the Army Painter as much as I do, head over to thearmypainter.com where you can use the discount code ARTOFWAR5 to get a discount on your next order.
All right, so the first knight that we're going to be ranking today is the Knight Tyrant. This is the equivalent of like the Castellan or the Valiant. Of course, you can put both of the weapon options on it. This is the nice big Dominus class one.
Absolutely. And what is a 12-inch no-go zone for deep strikes? It has some okay guns, I think.
Yeah, it's also an aura of cover for war dogs, just in case you're really struggling in 10th edition to find cover for your war dogs. And yeah, the guns are pretty good. The Volcano Lance and the, it's a Brimstone Exterminator? No, it's a Brimstone Volcano Lance. There's a big plasma gun as well.
Yeah, the plasma gun and the Volcano Lance. The Volcano Lance is somewhat hurt by being, D3 shots?
It is D3 shots. As soon as you get past the wound step with this knight, game over. It's curtains. But that shot count hitting on threes does make it a little bit unreliable as a long-range anti-tank piece.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Desecrator, which hits on twos with its main gun and has flat 3 shots, for example.
That is more appealing than the Brimstone. But This at least does come with a big plasma cannon. It also comes with some twin-link melta-guns, siege cannons on top, some missile shots. It has more guns, but none of them are those guaranteed killers that you want. They're just probably killers 51% of the time.
Yeah, as you said, when you get past the wound step, you're golden, but a decent amount of the time, you won't, unfortunately. You have a different configuration as well, which is the flamer and the spear, right? The harpoon.
Absolutely.
That is very short range, and I don't really see a reason to take that over anything else that would operate in that range band.
Yeah, the D3 shots on the new harpoon sounds great because it used to be 1, but then you realize that you can compare it to the other half of this model where the Brimstone cannon is, it's slightly less damage. It's a D6 plus 8 instead of 12.
But it shoots at like 120 inches instead of 18?
12.
12? That's sad.
Yeah.
That's not great.
It's not great.
No. Where would you put this boy?
I would say that the Knight Tyrant for me falls into middle of the pack. As much as we talk about some of the negative qualities, it still has shooting that can do something, as opposed to the knights we're going to talk about that don't have that. And it is less than 400 points, and it's still T12. It's a bucket of wounds. That 12-inch no-go zone is actually really valuable. It has both upsides and downsides, and to me, that stops it from making it into my most competitive lists, but there is reason to bring it.
Yeah, the upsides is very tough. It's not that expensive for its stats. The downsides are it's not super reliable at ever doing anything. And for almost 400 points, like before I was like less than 400 points and you get this stat line, but for almost 400 points, I want something that does damage reliably.
Yeah, so that's going to keep it below some of the other choices here.
Absolutely.
Up next is the Knight Despoiler. This is the oldest knight available for Chaos Knights. This is the one that's actually based kind of on the Imperial kit, where you can mix and match any weapon that you could put on the older Imperial Knight models, basically anything in a Crusader kit, onto one Abhorrent class Knight. But unlike a Crusader, this has one very specific line of text in the Warrior selection that really levels it up. And that is that you can take the same gun twice.
Yeah. So you could take what? You can take 2 melee weapons if you want to make a bad Rampager.
100%. You could take 2 chainswords if you want.
You could take 2 chainswords if you want to make a strictly worse Rampager. Mm-hmm. But you're not going to do that. What you're going to do is you're going to take some of the guns that the rest of the book does not have access to, right? The rest of the book does not have the, thermal blaster.
Yeah. I think it's a demon breath. It's not a demon breath spear. It's a demon breath
like cannon. Blaster. Yeah, the big melta cannon, the chain cannon, the battle cannon, right? You can't take those elsewhere. So if you like that profile, you have to come to the Despoiler for that. In addition, you can take 2 of it. So when you really want to, you come to the Despoiler for that job. And mix and matching the arms is probably not what you want to do. You want a guy who is very good at one thing, either killing medium to hordy type targets with, the double Gatling, or kind of being all right into everything with the double battle cannon, and especially good if you ally it into Death Guard and Mortarian's Hammer, but this is not a Death Guard tier list.
It's quite good there.
It's insane. You can just point at a target and be like, hey, that target has -1 save and -1 toughness.
Why limit yourself to 1 target?
And then, yes. And then the Despoiler goes for 335?
335.
Crazy.
I'm sure it'll be there forever.
And then the double Melta Cannon one is also very good because you get an average of 8 shots and you roll a hit or a wound.
Hit or a wound.
Hit or a wound, but it's strength 12, AP 4, damage D6 plus 6 if you're within 12. Very good, for example, on a knight that can pick up and put down.
Yes. Honestly, the most notable thing about the guns available to the Despoiler is that genuinely all 3 of the options have very real merit to them in different detachments, in different places. The double Gatling cannon is probably the all-rounder that's good anywhere you put it. But I think in certain detachments, I can really see an argument for any of the guns, but you are taking it for the guns. If you want combat, there are just other knights to look at.
Yes. And you could argue to take a gun and combat weapon, but realistically, just don't do that.
I don't think it's worth it. If you're worried about getting in combat, just take an extra Gatling cannon and then shoot the person in combat with you.
Yes, you can always just point the guns down.
That's going to get you about 90% of the way to whatever your sweet profile was about to be.
Yeah. Now, if you don't take a melee weapon, the melee is atrocious.
That's true.
But he is 335, which is insanely, I don't know how else to put it, insanely cheap, man. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
335?
Yeah, this guy needs to go up like 30 points minimum, possibly more.
Minimum, yeah. So that's part of the reason why it's so high is you get insane firepower on the cheap. If you're seeing an allied knight, you're almost certainly seeing a Despoiler.
That's true.
And it's just very, very good.
Yeah.
Just efficient.
For me, this one is going straight to the top of tournament staples. This is the night after I've, playing more and more games of this codex that I want in basically every detachment. In Lords of Dread, I want multiple. In Infernal Lance, which I think is the best one, I want multiple. In Traitorous Lance, probably would still try to take at least one, maybe even more. Maybe not Hound Pack Lance, but
that one,
I guess.
That one is, in the one that tells you to take War Dogs, you might not take a Despoiler, and you still might. You still might.
Even with no rules, it's still pretty solid.
Yeah.
So just tournament staple, and especially in the best detachments, you're just gonna take them.
You really do want an enabler with it, right? Because base, the Gatling cannons are only okay. Base, the battle cannons are only okay. And base, the Melta cannon is great, but short range. So you need something to either up the damage of the battle cannon or the Gatling cannon, which is very easy to come by. You just have to do it. Or you have to give some way to get the Melta cannon in range. And all of a sudden, this guy's the best unit in your list.
Yeah. Infernal Lance, you either get Ignores Cover and your choice of Sustained or Lethal when you want it most. And then in Lords of Dread, you can potentially get a Teleport and reroll 1s to hit and wound against tough targets. God help you if you really need to full hit, and wound reroll against a Titanic target. But that is the point where a Melta Knight that teleports genuinely could kill 2 knights. Not saying it would, but it's not the craziest thing in the world if I told you that it did that.
If you have other knights to pick up the spare, if a knight lives on a little bit, you totally would split fire there. Yeah.
I'd do it.
Yeah. So if you have any kind of enabling, right, anything to offset the low AP on the Gatling or the battle cannon, you're one of the best units in the game. Yep. And if you have anything to offset the mobility of the Melta, again, one of the best units in the game.
Just really, really strong here. Up next is the Knight Abominant. This is the Knight that came out in 9th edition with the Codex release, and I gotta say, it came out without much fanfare. It wasn't, how do we say this, good?
No, it was pretty bad.
It was pretty bad. But as it has slowly evolved from being bad to bad to bad, it is now actually pretty solid.
Yeah, it's also by far the coolest one.
Oh my god, yes.
Right, it's a psyker, like, just evil, demon-possessed, psychic knight that
Big
has a bunch of
microwave
weird
cannon.
rules.
Nobody really knows what it does.
It's so cool, man. It just sprinkles mortal wounds all over your opponent constantly.
So what the Abominant actually does is that it has two pretty good rules that happen at almost the same time. At the end of the movement phase, you get to do a pulse where every enemy unit within 9 inches, you roll a 3 up, and if you succeed, they take D3 mortals. This is notably not an aura, which is good because you can double stack it if you're taking multiple, but it means it won't be impacted by the extend aura ability that you potentially have with the Dread Table. Still, just splashing mortals on everyone nearby gets really annoying, especially when you have a couple of these. When you have 2 or 3 of these pushing up at the same time, I've seen just like 5 aspect warriors just like whoosh, off the table.
Oh yeah. No, that
just happens.
It's a very strong effect because they just become this, tidal wave of mortals that start running across the table at you. Mm-hmm. Even non-aspect warrior units don't want to take 3d3 mortals for just vibing. Don't worry, these things have guns in combat. They will continue to shoot you. Like, it will hurt.
Of course. And on top of that, at the start of the shooting phase, you pick a visible enemy within 24 inches and cause it to take a battle shock test. Pretty cool. That'll help synergize a bit with the army rule, because there's generally a lack of synergy with the Dread Table within the actual data sheets. This is one of the few exceptions to that.
Yeah. And then it has a really wacky gun. It's 12 shots at strength 12, damage 3, dev wounds, AP 0. But don't let that fool you. Like, that is still very scary. Yes, you do not have AP, but you have a lot of shots that will wound, that do have dev wounds, and your opponent will fail some amount of saves. Like, you point this thing at a Gladiator, Reaper, or Lancer or something, it's very reasonable that that tank is gone.
Yep. It's a very spiky way to do it, but some fun math is that if you shoot at a 3-up save, like T10 tank and cover, having dev wounds AP 0 is the same about number of failed saves as being AP 2.
Yep.
Which, yeah, AP 0 sounds so terrible, but when you start shooting that gun, it adds up, and occasionally gets really weird. We just point them and say, oh, well, 12 dev wounds, you're dead.
Yeah, and it's like better into higher toughness things with a good armor save. Because, like, you point at a Land Raider, and oops, that Land Raider took 9 damage, and still has to take like 3 saves.
Yeah, you
right?
can.
And they could fail that. And then suddenly they take like 9 to 12 damage, and oopsie daisy, and anyway, there's another Abominant. And this thing's 325 points.
This is the cheapest of the big knights, which I will say I do think is a real saving grace. Its rules are all good but unreliable, and so I don't really like taking one Abominant, if I'm being honest. One Abominant usually makes me sad. There's only one aura, there's only one battle shock test. The microwave gun is funny, but occasionally you do like 3 damage instead of the 12 that you're dreaming of. But multiple Abominants can actually be a really good Corvalist.
36 shots at 1203 dev is pretty ridiculous. Like, you don't want to be on the receiving end of that for more than 1 turn tops. It also has some melee. It's a bit weird. I know it's 8 attacks at 10-2-3?
It's 9 attacks of 10-2-3 sustained with an additional sweep from the tail. I'm pretty sure the tail is weapon skill 6, even though it says weapon skill 3. It's strength 8, AP 1, damage 2. I can just never get anything done with the tail. But the sweep is good.
Yeah, I mean, it does respectable damage, but what it does not do is crack vehicles in combat that well.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of the other knights, if they have a chainsword or a fist, will just, like, drop a vehicle.
Yeah, a Rhino chassis is usually in, like, existential fear if it gets charged by a knight. The Abominant definitely might kill a Rhino in combat, not will.
Yeah, for sure. But it makes up for that by being cheap and by just spreading mortals everywhere and firing its microwave gun over and over and over again. So I'm a big fan of this guy, actually, and I think it is a baller list that has 3 of them.
Absolutely. And so for us, the Abominant is going to go into strong choice.
Also, how is this thing? How can you take 3 of these for less than 1,000 points? What is that?
I don't know what you mean.
Yes, I hear you.
Do I own 3 of these? Yes, of course. But
Yes.
like, why not? It's a cool night.
We can rail on the points for a while, but like, man, 325 for toughness 11 and 26 wounds is, and it does real damage. That's a vibe for sure.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Up next is the Knight Ruinator. This is the newest model. This is what we just got as part of the Codex release. It's a sick looking model. It's got a big drill on one arm. It's got a big flamer on the other arm. And it definitely has stats for those weapons as well.
Yeah, I read it once, and then I erased that information from my brain because I deemed it not relevant.
Yeah, so the Ruinator rules are interesting. It's one of those new models, like with those rules that you get to pick an enemy target, and you're better against it.
Okay.
In this case, you reroll wounds against your chosen prey. And as soon as your prey is destroyed, even if it's not killed by the Ruinator, you get to pick a new prey. And then, okay, you get to reroll wounds against that thing. But
That's neat.
It's neat. You know, wound rerolls are not something readily available to knights. So that rule on face value sounds perfectly good. What its weapons bring, though, is probably a little bit less overwhelming.
Yeah, I remember vaguely that it's like a bad flamer and like a bad blast gun, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, it's I would say that the guns aren't inherently bad, just maybe not proportionate to what you could otherwise take on a knight.
Yeah.
The flamer is 18-inch torrent ignore cover, strength 8, AP 1, damage 2, 2d6 shots. AP 1 is a little bit of a bummer on that. It's not bad, but it's not
2d6 shots can also very easily be 4, and then your 335 point knight is like not doing anything.
Yeah. And then you run into the the gun itself. The missiles are strength 8, AP 2, damage 2, and they're 2d6 blast. But
Not ignores cover.
Not ignores cover. So obviously you're going to have to roll the hit here. Same thing, 2d6 is just a little unreliable, both of its weapon being 2d6.
And then it hits on 3s.
Yeah. For me, this data sheet has a real problem where it doesn't really know what it wants to do. It has an armature buff we'll talk about in a little bit that's actually pretty useful. It's not amazing, but it's useful. But the big problem that I have with this guy is that you're a bunch of strength 8 weapons with reroll wounds. So ideally, your best target is like MEQ, like Space Marine equivalent stuff, like intercessors.
Yes.
But then the rule doesn't really kick in that much, right? You're a mid-volume strength 8. Yeah, I like rerolling ones to wound, but it's a little underwhelming as a rule.
Yeah, and then also if they're just in cover with Armor of Contempt, you just like don't kill a squad.
Yeah. And then of course, if you look at the other side of this, which is, hey, reroll wounds, let's put that to most effect by shooting a vehicle. You shoot a vehicle, but then you're still a bunch of AP 1 that ignores cover and AP 2 that doesn't, damage 2. So if you really want to use this rule and you shoot at like a rhino, you also don't really kill a rhino.
Yes, because you wound them on 5s. This thing just feels kind of pointless. What's its armature rule? I forget.
It's a 6-inch aura of +1 AP when you target the closest enemy unit.
That's not bad. It's not something I'm spending over 300 points to give to my armatures. I would rather just take 2+ more armatures.
Yeah.
Right, 2 more armatures and have points left over rather than having a big useless boy in the center of my army that buffs my armatures.
Sadly.
Yeah, and his guns are like pretty laughable, honestly. Like the flamer just needs to be some set number of shots, and then the missiles need to be like strength 10.
Yeah, I hate that the a lot of flamers right now are just like a little bit too random. I would honestly love to see the flamer be D6 + 6.
Yeah.
Instead of 2d6.
I mean, it's on a knight, man.
Yeah,
it's a knight with a big flamer. It's one of his arms. Okay? Mm-hmm. That's prime real estate. And it's 2d6 shots. It can very easily be like 6 shots, 5 wounds at AP 1. No.
Yeah.
just no. This thing doesn't reliably kill 10 guardsmen in the open. Does he even on average kill 10 guardsmen in the open without having it be his dedicated target?
Depends on if they have take cover up, I think.
Yeah.
It's not great.
No, it's pretty bad. And his guns are anti-infantry, by the way, not anti-tank. It's not like, the Castellan doesn't kill 10 guardsmen in the open. Yeah, it's got a big laser and a plasma cannon. It's not going to.
It's D6 + 8 damage. You're clearly not there for the guardsmen, but this one is theoretically there to clear the infantry. The biggest sinker of this one, honestly, is the points cost. This is the most expensive of the abhorrent class knights. He's 350. And when you consider that every other abhorrent is in the 325 to 335 range, unfortunately, this is definitely the lowest on that totem pole. For me, this one is going to land clearly in, I just wanted to paint this.
Yeah.
It's here for the cool looking. Look, it's a cool looking model.
But it might be the only book Chaos Knight that's overcosted instead of undercosted.
Yeah, no, this is the only one that I would make a real argument for it to go down in points.
Yeah.
Up next is the Chaos Knight Desecrator. This is this is one of my old favorites from 9th edition. This is the knight that has it has honestly the best gun name in the book. I think it's the Turbo Laser Destroyer on one arm, and then it has your choice of a chainsword or a fist on the other. This is very much like the shooting support knight from the classic Chaos Knight kit.
Yeah, it's super cool, man. It has the biggest gun. It hits on 2s. The range is infinite. The strength is very high. The AP is very high. The damage is very high. It's very cool. It is a long-range anti-tank piece, and it still hits in combat, right? Because it still gets a chain sword or a fist. Mm-hmm. And that's essential here because it otherwise would be dead in the water to 5 Space Marines because it physically can't kill them, right? Yeah. But it can still contribute to that while still throwing very high-quality shots downrange. And this is important for a significant reason. What are the things that are going to threaten to shoot you to death? It is going to be vehicles or monsters, but mostly vehicles, shooting you from downrange. Mm-hmm. Knights, Chaos Knights and Imperial Knights both actually have a bit of an anti-tank range issue. Yeah. If you want good anti-tank in Chaos Knights, you better be charging your target or you better be within 12. Because otherwise you just don't have access to good anti-tank. And in Imperial Knights, it's 24 inches, right? 24 inches for all their good anti-tank shooting, and that's it. And so if there's opponents' vehicles can park outside of that and either shoot you, right? They have longer range, so they shoot you, or they sit there in the moment you enter range. So they play the game with like scouts and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And then the moment you enter range, they just blast whatever enters range. And then you have to keep walking in. That's very bad. Indeed. Whereas the Desecrator can very reliably throw good firepower downrange from yard. So your opponent has to be hiding the whole game. And then when stuff kicks off, he can shoot at vehicles, he can charge everything. And that's very, very helpful. He's also incredibly good in a very vital matchup right now. Oh, yeah? Actually, a couple of them, which is Death Guard and Chaos and Imperial Knights, which I don't know if you've seen the meta reports recently, but it's those 3 just everywhere, just ruling the roost.
I think those 3 armies are combining for a little over 20% of the field in the latest reports I've seen.
It's crazy.
They everywhere in singles.
They
right
everywhere.
now.
And they're more than 20% of the winning side of the bracket. I will tell you that.
That's true.
So he hits buggies and wounds buggies on 2s. Mm-hmm. And is very good at just popping them from downtown at a range that Death Guard cannot shoot him back relevantly at.
Ballistic skill 2. Big thing here. This is the only ballistic skill 2 in the Codex.
Yes. So he will be downtown, especially if you take him and a buddy, just combining fire and just hitting and wounding buggies on 2s at a range Death Guard cannot match. Yep. Right? That gives you a huge edge, huge amount of breathing room. Very, very good in that matchup. Mm-hmm. Into Imperial Knights, if you don't have Desecrators, you are DOA. It is very bad if they have like triple Atropos and Canis.
Yeah, that's a very rough matchup.
It's an incredibly, incredibly hard matchup. If you have Desecrators, it's still very bad. But you at least have an edge, which is that you can throw good anti-tank firepower downrange at a range they cannot match, which gives you, I'm not going to say an advantage, but it gives you something to exploit in that matchup, right? It gives you some edge that you have over them, you can exploit, and they have the short range firepower over you. And in Chaos Knights, same deal, right? You don't have long anti-range firepower, anti-tank firepower in Chaos Knights. So if you're playing the mirror and you have Desecrators, you're the one shooting and they're the one not until you're both close.
Yeah. His rules on the Desecrator are both pretty good, but neither of them are great, I would say. It's a reroll once to hit aura for fellow War Dogs, but only in shooting. And then he gets devastating wounds when he shoots at large targets, which I gotta say on an AP4 gun, devastating wounds is nice. When you roll a 6 to wound, your target doesn't get like a 5 up invuln, but it's not particularly reliable. I would much rather have something like just like a 1 wound reroll hammerhead style.
Yeah. I mean, you have one. It's unfortunately it's a CP reroll, but
of course, classic.
Yeah.
Hey, in Lords of Dread, I'd probably put the enhancement on this guy to get a free CP reroll.
That would be my recommendation.
The Desecrator is quite solid. So I think we were putting it in a strong choice.
Absolutely. I think it belongs in strong choice, largely because it solves. It's not the most stats efficient knight on the list, but it does a thing that is A, very good right now, and B, the rest of the book kind of just doesn't do at all. Like, doesn't even attempt to do.
Yeah, the Despoiler can get some long range anti-tank, but the AP on that is usually going to be AP 1 or 2, and therefore needs something added to it, which is an ignore cover stratagem in Infernal Lance, but you can only use that once.
And also it's strength 6 or 10.
Yeah, and as soon as you're shooting at a long, like a knight that's far away, you don't have great ways to do a ton of damage.
Yeah. I think if you want to try to play into the knight matchup, the Imperial Knight matchup as Chaos Knights, I would start the list with 2 Desecrators personally and just try to keep them off you with that, and I might even go to 3.
Yeah, that's fair. The final Titanic character in the Codex is the Knight Rampager. This is the all-combat punch-you-in-the-mouth Knight, and honestly, this is a Chaos Knight player's Knight. This is the one that every Chaos Knight player, I think, most wants to be the best one. And it's actually pretty solid right now.
It's pretty solid. I mean, it needs something, right? Not having guns. Knights really need to shoot, right? Like that just... Yeah. It helps if they also have melee, which is why I think the Desecrator is good. It has melee and a gun. Very solid. But Knights really need to shoot unless they have some other reason to exist. Like, for example, Fight First. A Fight First Rampager in Lords of Dread, especially...
Capital P problem.
If you're a melee army, you just lose. Like, I have not figured a way around it for a melee army to beat a Fight First Rampager and access to -1 damage.
You have to have one of a very particular set of skills.
It better be very particular. It better be very particular.
It's the redirect attacks.
It's got to be that.
The angel sacrifice equivalent, because those strats are usually at the same time as the fights first.
And then you still have to kill it.
You do still have to kill it.
And that is easier said than done in that detachment.
Yeah, grenade, tank, shock. There's only like 20 wounds left after that.
Yeah, -1 damage. You'll be fine.
Yeah, probably.
So, broadly speaking, I think a Knight needs to have guns to be good. But if you have a reason to take the Rampager, suddenly he is very good. Like, a Lancer has problems in that it doesn't reliably kill much.
This kills most things pretty good.
Yeah, it has 2 different sweep attacks and it has 2 different strike attacks. And they all have sustained hits?
They all have sustained hits.
They all hit on 2s?
All hit on 2s. You'll have dev wounds on the charge.
So this thing, the Lancer a lot of the time can get charged by things and then not kill it. And so like Fight First on that is like whatever. This thing, if you fight it into a vehicle, the vehicle's dead. If you fight it into elite infantry, those elite infantry are dead. If you fight into horde infantry, the horde infantry are dead.
Yeah, I like the things that survive a Rampager activation are the extreme bricks, and none of them are happy. Like if I charge the Silent King, usually the Silent King now has no friends and is hurt. But honestly, there's like a 50-50 chance that he died.
He's just dead? Yeah, I mean, that could totally just happen.
10 possessed, you don't kill 10 possessed on average, but you know what? You kill like 7 or 8.
Yeah, and they're not killing you back.
No, they're not doing it.
They're never killing you back.
Good heavens, no.
No. So this thing will win combat against basically everything. Yeah. And that's pretty crazy. A Lancer will basically just win combat against other big knights, and that's assuming it's not a Rampager, and the Rampager didn't charge it first.
Yeah, the Lancer is probably better into specifically other big knights. Anything other than that.
And I don't even know if better is the right word because they just kind of matter and antimatter kill each other anyway.
Yeah.
So like...
I think a Lancer could tank a Rampager and then kill it.
Possibly.
It's not something... Look, there's only so many farps you can roll before I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah. But the Rampager will kill basically everything it touches. Mm-hmm. And that is what you want from a big, bad Chaos Knight that runs up and does the dirty to people. Yeah,
and just being a big combat piece. Again, it's not particularly expensive because, well, spoiler alert, none of them are particularly expensive, except maybe the Ruinator. But in this case, probably at its best in Lord of Dread is the Rampager, I'd say. But I think it genuinely does have play in some other detachments. Again, in Infernal Lance, when you get to just go plus 3 inches movement, it moves 15 at that point. It doesn't really need sustained. You can always, pact for lethal if you think it's really important. What's more likely, though, is that you just say, I hit hard enough as is. I'm either going to go faster or be tougher. Because lacking a combat invuln has long been a kind of a mark against a lot of combat knights, is they don't have an invuln in combat. In Infernal, you get to choose that. In Lords of Dread, you get to choose the fights first. And having one of those 2 things is mandatory. Outside of that, I wouldn't take the Rampager, but, outside of the 2 best attachments, it's less good. Yeah, so is the rest of the codex.
Yeah, I mean, also, I would... slam that Fight First Rampager in the list immediamente. It's just against combat armies, lights out, man.
It's so fun.
Even the redirection strat, I don't think does it because they just tank you on -1 damage and then kill you, and then they're like, "Where's your god now?"
They kill some things for certain, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of the Rampager if you can give it any kind of buff, but if you can't, knights probably want guns.
Yeah. So for me, I think this one is going to go into middle of the pack, but like right at the top of it.
I would say so, yes, because it's a competitive choice in several very good lists right now.
Yeah, it's a good choice. If I ever see something in the middle of the pack on the table, I'm not double taking, I'm not shocked. But I don't know if I would take it if I'm trying to go win a major with Chaos Knights. I probably am not including a Rampager in that list, even though there's a good argument. And maybe if I knew the meta, I'd think about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we talk about all of the war dogs in this lovely book, real quick, if you're liking this video, please like the video, share with your friends, leave a comment, subscribe, do all those wonderful things. All the YouTube buzzwords really help us grow the channel. As well, if you want to see even more amazing Warhammer content, if you want to see some games with this Chaos Knight Codex, check out the link in the description below to thewarroom.vhx.tv. In the War Room, we do post-game analysis. I talk about the state of the faction. I have a really nice deep dive of the Chaos Knight Codex in there. And you can also see some games that I'm playing with this book. You can even get a free 3-day trial with that link in the description below.
Adeptrol is the all-in-one math hammer app for Android and iOS. It makes crunching numbers easy and even fun. Import profiles from ease. Here you can see we have Guilliman and a Tyranid warrior. You can just see how these two units attack each other and what the expected outcomes will be. You can even add modifiers or field pains to make your accuracy even more precise. The way it works is it crunches thousands of simulations and then gives you a clear tactical outcome so you can focus on making good decisions on the battlefield with informed math behind them without having to do all the work. You can get a great breakdown of expected casualties, hits, wounds, saves, survivability odds, and even more. If you want to sharpen your skills and become better at Warhammer, check out Adeptrol. It's available for iOS and Android right now. Just search Adeptrol in the search bar of your app store or click the link in our description.
So the first of the war dogs is the Huntsman. This is actually the kit that you build out of the Imperial Knight kit, where instead of building a Warglaive, you build a Huntsman. It's the same model, you just paint some Chaos Stars on it and call it a day. The Huntsman is therefore that classic Chain Cleaver and Demon Breath Spear combo, and you probably are going to put a Meltgun on top. Its rule is that it rerolls wounds against vehicles and monsters.
That's very good.
Actually very good. There is not a lot of reroll wound access in this codex, and so when you can get that, it's quite valuable. It is weapon skill 3. It is 18-inch range now on the Demon Breath Spear, but it's still a strength 12 multi-melta that rerolls wounds against big stuff.
And is D6 plus 4 damage?
D6 melta 4. And that reroll wound actually does extend to combat as well, where it's 4 attacks at 10-3-3.
It's cheap, which is nice.
Yeah.
The range issue, I think, is like the biggest issue here.
Of course.
You have to get within 9 to truly kill vehicles. But when you get within 9, that does hurt.
Yeah. What I like is that kind of the last obstacle on this thing is the hit roll. The hit roll, you hit on 3s. There are certain ways to buff that. I would not say that there are a ton of them, though. But broadly speaking, if you get 2 hits, at that point it's, strength 12, AP 4, reroll wounds. D6 plus 4 if you're in melta range.
Yeah, so once you hit, you're golden. You do have to hit, which is unreliable because you don't have like +1 to hit. You could be near a Desecrator for reroll 1s, but the Desecrator wants to be long range. This thing wants to be short range, so like,
That doesn't always happen. Sometimes the Atropos gives you a little bit of love in Nightmares. But I actually quite like the Huntsman. The Huntsman is probably my second favorite of the 5 War Dog options, just because as a trade piece, I like that it's varied. It has a sweep attack in combat or a strike attack. It has a couple of good quality shots. I don't expect a Huntsman to do all of the work by itself, but it will help into almost any vehicle. That reroll wounds also does really help the strength 9 Meltagun on top as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect a single Huntsman to kill an enemy vehicle, although it certainly can,
It's
for
close
sure.
enough.
But a couple Huntsmen killing some amount of enemy vehicles is something I would rely on.
Absolutely. So I like having a pack of Huntsmen in certain lists. Overall, I find this to be pretty good. For me, this War Dog is going to fall into strong choice. It's not mandatory, but it's definitely one of the better ones. And for bringing a Meltagun, this is the best Meltagun that you can put on a War Dog.
Yes, for sure. Reroll wounds goes a long way.
Yeah, so good. The flip side of this kit is the Executioner. This is the chaotic equivalent of the Loyal Helverin, and so it has the same weapons. You have 2 War Dog autocannons on it, which is going to add up to 8 shots of strength 9, AP 1, damage 3. This is also the cheapest of the War Dogs, and I will say it's for a good reason. The rule here, a little bit underwhelming. You get +1 to hit when you shoot at enemy units that are below half strength. Really got that Executioner rule that goes so far.
Yeah, that's traditionally a very bad rule. You know what you need bonuses to do damage against? Things that are almost dead.
Hey, the best part of the Executioner, genuinely, is that it is 10 points less than all of its fellow War Dogs. And quite frankly, that's when this gets taken. You are never taking this in a 1910 list because it is strictly the worst of the 4 War Dog options. But it has to be said, sometimes you need to find 10 points. And this is one of the very few places where you can actually be flexible in a Chaos Knight list.
Yeah, if your list is over by 20 points, unfortunately, 2 of your war dogs are going and becoming 2 executioners.
Yeah, unless there's an enhancement you can cut.
And that is sad. You're not happy to do that, but you will do it.
Yeah, I've definitely found that a lot of my lists end up with 1 executioner and 3 of the war dog that I like. And honestly, it's still a war dog. It's still the same defensive profile. It still has 6 OC, 14 wounds. If I ever am forced to just like push a war dog out as well, someone's going to go do this action. I do like leading with an executioner, as this is the one that can get tagged and still shoot down. It has enough volume that if it gets tagged in combat by 5 Eldar Rangers, it will stand still and probably get its way out of the problem.
Yeah.
It's not great.
No, it's not. But it is a physical body, and it's the cheapest one you have, and it can push forward and hold objectives.
Yeah, so for me, I think being the worst war dog still keeps it in the middle of the pack. It's not by any stretch the one I'm most excited about, but I actually do have executioners in a couple of my lists.
At least it's not 350, right?
At least it's not 350. Going down the line, the first of the actual Chaos Plastic War Dog kits is the Brigand. The Brigand was one of the best in the Knights Index, where as a double gun knight that got +1 AP against the closest target, it was a really popular choice, especially because most lists tended to be very heavy on war dogs in the Chaos Knight Index.
Yeah, it also hit on 2s?
It also hit on 2s. Now it has a bit of a new lease on life, and I wouldn't say it's really changed for the better, honestly. It has gotten a lot cheaper, it's gone down 25 points, but it now ignores cover against objective markers instead of getting an AP bonus, and it has gone from Ballistic Skill 2 to Ballistic Skill 3.
Yeah, that's a pretty steep downgrade, honestly. I would not be super happy to be a Brigand pilot. Suddenly my guns are all shaky and don't hit stuff anymore. That is a big problem. Hitting on 2s is where you don't need buffs to be reliable, and hitting on 3s is where you do need buffs to be reliable, and I don't think there's a lot of super reliable hit modifiers in Chaos Knights.
Still not a ton. And a big problem that I think is here for the Brigand is just that its guns now have too many hoops to jump through where they're unreliable. We talked about how a melta-gun with reroll wounds is actually pretty appealing. I think I would rather have reroll wounds than a chain cannon if I'm shooting at a vehicle.
Also, chain cannons at AP2 were very scary. Chain cannons at AP1, very not scary, unfortunately. That's just cover. You just get offset by cover. They're taking their base save because everybody has cover. And if they're on an objective, you will ignore that, but your opponent has the choice of whether they're on an objective or not. And so if you're shooting at like regular units with the chain cannon was really scary. It used to hit on 2s and it used to be AP2. And now it hits on 3s and it's AP1. And that chain cannon does less than half the damage of the previous one.
Yeah, so the Brigand has unfortunately had a bit of a fall from grace. It used to be in just every single list, and now it's not making the cut in most of my armies, if I'm being honest. If you're playing Hound Pack Lance and you're taking, 13 War Dogs, at that point, I think a couple of Brigands do make their way in.
By necessity, I would imagine.
Yeah, well, you don't have to because they're battle line, but I like them to get just a little bit of volume that you can otherwise just get with a Despoiler. But at the moment, they're not the best choice for getting volume into a list. They're not the best choice for getting meltas into a list. And I don't think a Brigand should be cheaper than other War Dogs, but because it's not, it doesn't have much of a place. So for me, this is still going to go in middle of the pack. It's not bad. I think it's just going to be passed up by the options that are ahead of it every time. And when War Dogs are all the same cost, it's a very strict hierarchy. If you cost the same and one is better, it is always better.
Yeah, and you just take the other one. You do not take this one very much, unfortunately. I mean, what I will say is that I think for the War Dog spam style, this is the single biggest hit to that play style in the change to the Codex. Because it used to be, honestly, it used to be a little boring. You used to take a Stalker, 6 Brigands, 6 Karnivores. We'll get to the Carnivores and Stalker in a second. But the Brigand was a serious part of that list because it was just very effective firepower platform that would shoot you over and over and over and over again, and armies just couldn't take that.
Yep. And it's a not blast, so even though you can tag it, tagging 1 Brigand is safer than being shot by 3, but it was still hitting on 3s when you shoot down. Now it hits on 4s. I would very much clear the remnants of a squad with a Brigand that gets tagged, but you're not really getting through whole units anymore.
No, so their firepower went from very good to fairly mediocre, and that's a serious hit for the army because now instead of having an all-in-one platform for your shooting, right? I don't need to worry about hordes, I have brigands. I don't need to worry about tanks, I have brigands. Done. You now have to balance it between a certain amount of huntsmen and a certain amount of stalkers, which kind of sucks. And then you have carnivores in there as well. So like you're shooting, your firepower just goes pretty hard, unfortunately, because you can't be good into all the targets, which means you have to now figure out how many melt am I taking? How much chain can am I taking? Did I get the mix wrong, right? So it's more interesting from a like list design perspective, and you do have enhancements and rules and strats and stuff that balance that all out. So I'm not saying it's bad. And it does mean you don't just take Stalker, 6 Carnivore, 6 Brigand. That's the list you've played for like a year and a half.
I'm glad to not be playing that list.
Yes. So unfortunately, that is over the sad demise of the Brigand.
Yeah. The next war dog to talk about is the Stalker. The Stalker is the mixed chassis of the bunch here, where it also gets a choice of a melee weapon or gun, but it actually gets to choose. It's not locked into something like an Imperial Knight is. It instead has choice of chain cannon or demon breath spear, fist, or chain cleaver. And it also lost the character keyword, gained scout. So scout gives it an actual kind of reason to exist, if I'm being honest, where scout gives it a real, this is the thing I do that no other war dogs do.
Yes, and in the Infernal Lance, that thing can move very quickly on turn 1.
Oh, he fast.
Yeah, he scouts 6. And then he moves 12, and then he moves +3.
Yep.
So he moves 21 inches on turn 1.
21 inches on top of 1 if I'm so inclined.
Yes, and you can advance if you really need to get to a spot to block it. Yeah. So that thing's very quick on turn 1, if necessary. And also, it's very modular. If you need a little more Melta, you can take a Melta. If you need a little more chain cannon, you can take a chain cannon.
Yeah, for my money, I actually think I like a chain cannon and a fist is the exact opposite of, the Huntsman, where I like the Melta and the chain cleaver. Just because if I'm going to scout and go harass enemy cheap units very quickly, I actually like the +1 to wound against an enemy target that's more than 6 inches away from its friends. Being honest, if I'm shooting at a tank is usually within 6 inches of something, and I'm probably not going to get that +1 wound. But the chain cannon, if I'm hunting trash, I can actually find a quick trash piece and just put a volume of dice into it on like turn 1, as this is the first night that goes out. That gives it a different role to something like the Huntsman, whereas as soon as the scout move is over, this becomes a much worse Huntsman.
Yeah, what I will say is that what you can see there is you're trying to get back that Brigand flexibility.
I do miss him.
You take the fist so you can crack big tough targets, and you take the chain cannon so you can deal with infantry, and vice versa with the Huntsman, where you take the cleaver so you can deal with infantry, and you take the Melta so you can deal with tanks. It's interesting, right? And the Stalker and the Huntsman being pretty solid is what allows that game plan to work.
Yeah, and so for me, this is also going to go into solid choice up there with the Huntsman. These are the two of the good war dogs, although I will say that I think we have saved the best for last.
Absolutely. That would be the War Dog Karnivore.
The Carny. I love the War Dog Karnivore. I was a hater in the Index because the Brigand existed, but they each saw their changes, and the Karnivore has won.
Yes, he also is not weapon skill 2 anymore. That's okay, though, because unlike the Brigand that didn't gain sustained hits, he did gain sustained hits, which mathematically is exactly the same as hitting on 2s.
Yeah, he's a little spikier, a little swingier. Every once in a while, though, you do get funny and put 8 hits on someone, though. I really enjoy when that happens.
Oh, yeah, it's fun.
He still has the same great combat profiles as before. He has the fist, the strike profile, and then he has the sweep attack of his chain cleaver. And he gets extra attacks because he's a dedicated melee knight. So where a normal melee knight like a Huntsman is 4 attacks, well, this is 6 attacks and sustained hits. You go from averaging like 2.5 or 3 hits to averaging like 5 hits. It's almost twice as good in combat as a Stalker.
Which is good because it has no gun.
It has no gun.
But it does move 14.
It moves 14. It's the fastest one. And if you're just playing I have an OC6 tank to go at you and hit you and contest your objective, just go faster, hit harder. It's a win.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what you want.
Yeah, and the Karnivore is still 140 points, which is a really nice price point. He still rerolls charges. Yes, all of the knights got the small change, I don't even want to say downgrade, of toughness down, wounds up, but he stays the same cost, hits about the same in combat, still rerolls charges. Was great before. He has new detachments to put him in, several of which are actually going to increase his output. I love Infernal for this knight because occasionally you can just say, oh, I actually am going to go 17 inches and charge.
Yep.
With reroll charges, that is a very credible top of one charge, not on the close deployments. That's a hammer and anvil turn one charge.
Reroll charges, yeah, it's quite good.
Just goes.
Yeah, 17 is very, very fast. And something we haven't really mentioned is that the toughness and wounds change is not necessarily a downgrade.
Yeah,
they definitely dropped the points like it was.
Yeah.
But it definitely does not have to be. If you are strength 9 or strength 10, you are better at killing these knights than you were before. And if you are anything else, you are worse at killing them than before. Because +2 wounds always leads to being tougher, whereas -1 toughness sometimes leads to being easier to kill, but not always.
Yeah, pretty much. And so it's been overall, I think both knight factions have adjusted to the new change swimmingly so far.
Yeah,
certainly hasn't been holding them back.
No.
All right, so the Karnivore, for me, tournament staple, up to the top. I love the Karnivore. I adore the Karnivore. Carnivores are in every single list I write. At this point, I am not completely sold on taking 6 bigs. I like to have like 4 or 5 and a little bit of options. And so for me, getting like 2 Carnivores and some Demon Allies, or 2 Carnivores, an Nurgling Squad, and like an extra enhancement or 2, has actually outweighed the 6th big knight, because usually the 6th big knight was the worst one I was taking.
Yeah, I think 6 is definitely overkill. I'm in the camp of 5 enhancements and some Nurglings. Is usually pretty good.
Yeah, you can like still fit a Carnivore or 2 in there though too. Like you can take 5 good knights and a Nurgling Squad, load up on enhancements, and you can still sometimes fit a Carnivore in there.
Yeah, very possibly. Yeah. So very worth taking some of these lower toughness knights and fitting them into your list so you get a little more variety.
Yeah, there's something to be said for just having the objective trading piece that's fast, just in case you ever don't want to expose every big knight at the same time. While that's often the game plan, sometimes you're going to look across the table and realize that it's not a good idea.
Sometimes there's 20 fire dragons over there.
If there's 20 fire dragons over there, someone has to go take that objective off of you, and I really don't want it to be a big knight. Now that Karnivore may only be buying me a turn, but that's more than Abominant number 6 was going to get me.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all of the knights that are in the actual Chaos Knight Codex, but because we have actually a pretty extensive Imperial armor update as well, I do want to rank all of these ones as well, because Chaos Knights as well as Imperial Knights are one of those armies that actually can make use of Forge World models still, even if some of them are plastic because they're Horus Heresy. It's a little confusing, but we actually have options that aren't in the Codex.
Absolutely. That's really cool. I know my custodians really appreciate that.
Yeah, there's a couple armies that are really happy to hold on to this, whereas I don't think Guard really noticed.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to start off, I'm going to kind of lump together the 2 Acastus Knights, if I'm being honest. They're both T13 with a 2-up save and 30 wounds. They're also both north of 700 points.
And not like barely north either. They're like 770.
I think it's like 710 and 765. There's one that's definitely better than the other, but they're both more than 700.
That's a lot.
The good one is 765, which is the
better
which
one.
Is the Asterius. It's the one that has 2 big conversion cannons. I'm going to be honest, they both have the problem of, wow, that knight shoots hard. It does not shoot twice as hard as a Despoiler. And even if it did, it would then not be twice as tough as 2 Despoilers. And the fact that you can just take honestly, you can take like any 2 knights and just slam that in there with change.
Just to be clear, the 2 Despoilers is almost 100 points less.
Yeah, it's 95 points less, which that's really close to like a Nurgling squad, 2 enhancements, 2 Despoilers, or an Acastus Knight.
Yeah, you're never going to pick the Acastus Knight there. 700 points is like at least 200 points too many.
Yeah, these are wildly overcosted, which is fine because we have other good options, and I'm not asking for it to get buffed until later, although it would be kind of cool if I ever got to paint one of these. We actually have one in the garage.
We have one in the garage.
We have one in the garage, and boy howdy have I not painted it and do not plan too soon.
No, 765 is just too high for 40k, unfortunately. You cannot be priced at that price point without winning the game by yourself. And they don't. They stand in the back, and they fire very scary guns at whatever is in line of sight.
Yeah, it still is like weapon, ballistic skill 3.
Yeah.
Blast. Like, it's just not good. So for me, both of these are going down into the dreaded despair tier. None of the Codex Knights made it to despair tier, but this despair. I just would not take this model.
Again, I don't know if I would take it at 565. In fact, I'm pretty confident I wouldn't.
You know, I have to say that the big conversion beamers actually hit extremely hard.
It would be very good in the mirror.
It's so. You want to know what it does?
I've looked at it once, but yes, please run me through it again.
It's 6 shots, ballistic skill 3. This is 2 of them. So
total 12 shots.
No. 3 shots, 2 of them, 6 shots.
Got it. Right.
It is sustained hits D3 twin linked critical hits on 4s if you're like far away. I don't remember exactly how far away you have to be. But then it's strength 16, EP 2, damage 6 twin linked.
And he gets like +1 to a bunch of stats if it targets a vehicle?
Yes. +1 strength and damage. You go to strength 17 twin linked against vehicle monsters.
Wow, strength 17 is actually completely irrelevant.
I've not found a use for it yet.
And then damage 7 is neat, but honestly doesn't matter because there's 12 wound vehicles, there's 10 wound vehicles. There's not a lot of 14 wound vehicles, but they do exist, I suppose.
It unironically does just like lift a knight every turn. Like I think it like actually just does.
I mean, to be fair, there are 28 wound knights that are relevant, and there are 14 wound armigers. So in that matchup, hey, guess what? The +1 damage affects breakpoints quite significantly.
Against Titanic, it's +2 to those stats. It goes to goes to damage 8,
which is important because there's a lot of 28 wound knights with a 6 of feel no pain.
Yeah, but if you just shoot this, I'm gonna tell you like on average you get like 4 hits. Oh, 3 of them are sustained to D3, so that's actually like getting 10 hits. And then you're twin linked. You put like 9 invulns on your opponent's knight, and it's like, oh, here, take 9 damage, 8 invulns on your knight. And yeah, that probably does kill it, but here's the problem with average. There is no rerolls on the hit roll. You are still ballistic skill 3, and if I walk out, big old Chungus the Clown, just the biggest, heftiest Forge World Knight you've seen in your life, and I shoot at Canis Rex, probably fine. But boy, that one time where I roll 4 2s to hit, then a 3 and a 5, and I was like, oops.
And he passes
one of the 3 saves I gave him.
Yep.
And he's like, wow, Canis Rex is hurt. Dead.
Yeah, you have to stay more than 34 inches away to continue raining fire, and
that's actually hard to do.
That is kind of hard to do, especially if they're making an issue of it, because they will be.
I mean, if you have an Asterius, they certainly will be.
You're not taking the Asterius. You're not taking the Porphyrion. There's 765 points and 710.
Straight down into despair.
Exactly.
Now, there are slightly more useful options here. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the more useful ones. This is going to be the Cerastus Knight Atropos. Probably the best option from the Imperial armor, in my mind.
I would say by a significant amount, too. It's not as good as the Imperial Knight Atropos.
No, it's low volume, and it's very hinged on the shot count. I swear, I don't think I've rolled a 3 on the D3 shotgun yet. I just cannot, for the life of me, get more than a 1 hit out of this thing.
Yeah, that low shot count means that the reroll to hit and wound from Imperial Knights is like pretty massive, and you don't get that here.
Sad.
So they're just not even remotely as efficient as Imperial Knights are at the same job using the Atropos. Still a solid tank, though.
Yeah, it's solid. You have a 5 of invulnerable save in combat. You have the awesome 28 wounds. You move 12. You have good combat. You have good shooting. The shooting is a reroll away from being great, I would say.
But it's a reroll it doesn't have.
It's a reroll it doesn't have. And in Lords of Dread, where you actually start to get some rerolls, it actually does get quite good, I think. But then in Lords of Dread, are you just taking other knights that the points fit? Who could say?
How many points is this thing?
It's 355, which is, I mean,
it's not bad.
It's really not bad. It's only 20 points more than a Despoiler to be a double gun knight that has actual combat and 2 extra inches of movement, 3 extra wounds. Like, genuinely has a lot of upsides here. But the consistency problem is a real big problem for Chaos Knights, because Chaos Knights as a whole have a real consistency issue just across the codex. And so you kind of have to gravitate towards the things that don't have that problem.
Yeah, so a Desecrator has the same consistency issue, but has a much longer range.
Yes.
So it doesn't have to put itself on the line in order to pop shots at vehicles.
Yeah. It also, honestly, a Desecrator doesn't have the same type of consistency issue where it's 3 shots. Where the Atropos has this very weird problem of like, he can do more damage than a Desecrator to a knight, very believably so, but he also has a much more real chance of accidentally leaving a rhino alive.
Yes.
Whereas the Desecrator, very likely to kill a rhino.
Yeah, hits on 2s, wins on 2s.
I'm willing to bet on it. If I've got a CP spare that's good enough for me, I'm willing to just shell that thing out.
Rhino's dead.
Yeah. Rhino's dead. I'll write it off. Now, does the Desecrator do 60 damage to a knight? No, but it's good. But the Atropos swings up and down on the shot count more than anything else.
Yep. And again, 24-inch range on anti-tank guns means you are committing, sir.
Yeah.
When you're firing that gun, you have committed your knight. And if that thing does not die, oops.
Yeah, and that commitment's not bad. Again, it's good in combat.
Yeah.
Probably better than Desecrator in combat. It costs a little bit more, a little bit faster. It's a little bit better at certain things. But ultimately, this is just going to keep it as a good knight to me, not a great one.
Yeah, and if you're trying to tangle with Death Guard or Imperial Knights within 24 inches, you're probably just going to get killed. Yeah. So where would you put the Atropos? It's still good. It's just not the same as the Imperial Knights version.
Yeah, for me, I still would put it as a solid choice. I think that it might be towards the bottom end of solid choice, if I'm being honest. I think it's a little bit overrated just because of what its Imperial cousin does. And I do think that you really would want to take this in the detachments that actually help it. I've been kind of a little bit disappointed every time I take an Atropos. So solid choice, but there are multiple knights ahead of it that make this a really tough competition where, I definitely have the Abominant and the Despoiler ahead of it. The Desecrator is probably a little bit more consistent as well.
And longer range is pretty massive.
That can be really significant.
And I think there's one other big Cerastus knight that is worth singling out here, and that would be the Lancer. Now, the Lancer, I have a much worse opinion of than the Atropos. I think, my hot take is I think that the Lancer is noob bait.
Yep. It has a lot of the things that you wanted to have. It is a good combat knight that is very fast. It is 2 inches faster than a Rampager. It also comes with a 4-up invulnerable save that works in combat, and it only costs 20 points more than a Rampager. Okay. It hits quite hard. It has a free tank shock, and it's an aura of assault for War Dogs.
Sometimes, though, in Knights, being just 20 points more means your list doesn't fit anymore, and you need to start cutting things. Yeah. So that is not nothing.
No,
because lists tend to click right in, and then you're like, I can't mess with this. I can't take this Rampager and make it a Lancer, because then I have to cut, another big knight to turn it into other stuff.
It really does get to that point, yeah.
Yeah. My main issue with the Lancer, and the reason I think it's noob bait, is it straight up does not do anything at all at range, period. And the Rampager also doesn't do anything at range, but here's the key fact that I think separates the two. The Lancer does not consistently kill everything in combat, and the Rampager consistently kills everything in combat. The Lancer its strike is magnificent.
Yeah, when you find the right target.
When you find the right target for the strike, it'll kill other vehicles, but it will not kill 10 guardsmen. And that is a real issue for it. It gets tied up. It's a melee knight that gets tied up. That's very bad. Better hope you draw that challenger card.
Yeah, Chaos Knight's not getting a fallback and act stratagem anywhere in this codex. Honestly, did surprise me a little bit. Also, does limit you to things that you are not worried about that with.
Yes, and the Lancer is a stat line that can't sit back and play a reasonably long game. So it has to go forward. And when it goes forward, basically, unless your opponent is a Knights player, so if they're not a Knights player, they have something that can charge you and tie you up. And they can ignore you for a turn. And that kind of sucks.
Yeah, the goal of a Lancer is to be that first one through the breach, first big knight forward. It gets onto an objective. And as what it's trying to say is, even if you tie me up, I'm still going to hold the objective, and that will provide me some value. But I just don't think you have to be a Lancer to do that. As a matter of fact, there's a very clear, this is what I would rather have than a Lancer, which is if I want to push a 4+ invuln stat brick onto the center objective, get my opponent to bring out their anti-tank, I'd rather take Rodigus.
Well, there is Rodigus, and then there's also absolutely anything other than a Lancer. Because as I said, your opponent doesn't need to actually bring out the hefty anti-tank guns for the Lancer. Yeah. They'll take whatever crack at the Lancer keeps them safe, and then they'll tie him up with 10 guardsmen or 11 guardsmen physically cannot die.
Yeah, and with any luck, the Lancer would still hold the objective. I don't want to make it sound like the Lancer's worthless, but I think I would rather use something else for the job.
Absolutely. In addition, it's not just having more than 10 models means that it can't kill something, or reasonably 10, because you're not going to hit and wound with every single one, then they fail every single save. And if even one lives, then you're stuck. The other thing is it's just not that great at killing tough targets either. Anything that has 4 wounds or Armor of Contempt or an invuln is very likely just to tank through it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of an issue. Whereas the sweep on the Rampager is very good.
Yeah,
and you can't just take
it. You can either
it.
do 2 or 3 damage, 2 damage volume, where like a Lancer is honestly going to struggle to kill too many power armor bodies at once.
Yep.
And it's going to struggle to kill like too many possessed at once. And it's just like it's a weird. It's actually pretty good into specifically possessed in combat, I guess, but like still not amazing.
Still not great. It was still hits on what, 2s, wounds on 3s?
Wounds on 3s. I think it's strength 10.
That's not great.
Kills 3 or 4.
Yeah. I mean, here's my main issue with it is I think that it gets overrated because it's the one that is the scariest to play against because it has that 4-up invuln. If your opponent runs it into the center, like it's the knight I think that knight opponents really like.
Yes.
Speaking as a knight opponent, I have moved past this view. And the reason for that is because the knights run into the center. And as the opponent, you're like, wow, this is a 4-up invuln and it has a 4-up in combat. What if I just don't kill it? And that's one game. But the knight player has to play the whole tournament. And the main issue there is that the Lancer, especially against good players, is just not going to hold up for you very well. And if you really need to kill other knights, you have other things for that job too that don't rely on sprinting up the pipe at them and getting into combat.
Indeed.
Especially because even if you get charged, like you get charged by a Desecrator, there's a non-zero chance that if you've taken a little fire beforehand, you're dead. And so I'm not a big fan of the Lancer. I think it's a trap. Actually pretty heavily a trap. Largely because unless you reliably just kill whatever you're in combat with, knights need guns. They need to be able to shoot back and to pick up resources that are firing every turn.
I would take an Atropos over a Lancer every day of the week, and there's still plenty of chances I wouldn't take an Atropos.
Yes.
But just for identical cost, identical wounds, I would just rather have guns and good combat than pretty good combat because it's not insane combat. It's not better enough in combat to not have guns.
Exactly. The Rampager is and still suffers for that comparison of not having guns.
Yeah, still doesn't make the cut. So, where are you putting the Lancer?
I think I would put it in, I just wanted to paint this. I know that is going to be a controversial take, but I think it's a trap. I think it's like a huge trap. I think if you include a Lancer in your list over a knight with guns, you're making your list demonstrably worse.
See, I want to disagree with you, but my main argument is that I have a conversion planned that I really want to do, and I really want to paint it. So you might have me there.
Yeah, you really want to paint it. And
I do want to paint it.
Yeah, that's the tier it goes into, I think. I've seen people including this knight in their lists. I've seen people thinking it's very good, and I could not disagree more harshly.
Yep. And speaking of the tier, I do think that the other 2 Chaos Knight, Cerastus Knights, I should say, are going to fit here as well. Both the Acheron and the Castigator, they each fall into this problem of their shooting output is not great, their combat output is like good but not great, and they don't buff the dogs nearby them enough to not have the complete action. The Castigator is the better one in my mind because it gives sustained hits and shooting to nearby war dogs, which is actually pretty cool, but it suffers from the downfall of the Brigand, where I just have less volume than before.
Yes.
So the next knight to talk about is the War Dog Moirax. Unfortunately, the Moirax has the distinction of being the worst and most expensive of the war dogs available to Chaos Knights. It's not really where you want to be.
No, that's a bad place to be.
Yeah, the Moirax gets a 0 command point heroic intervention, which is not great. I think it also might even have to be near a Titanic Knight.
As a datasheet rule, free heroic is one of the worst ones.
It is, which is crazy because heroic intervention is such a good stratagem. But it's such a good stratagem that you almost never use, so you don't actually have to spend the command point, and then you don't have anything else.
Well, also, if it's good, you'll spend the command point happily. You want your datasheet to make the unit better, so that when it heroics in, it is better.
Yeah, and it doesn't really get a ton of weapons that are particularly exciting. You can do double guns, you can do gun fist, you can do fist, but none of those weapons are, frankly, as good as just having like a demon breath spear or a chain cannon as an arm. There's no gun that's as good as those.
But it's cheaper, right?
It is 150 points. So
if you ever, the most expensive.
If you ever run into the opposite of the Executioner problem, where your list is actually 10 points under, Would you take that as an opportunity to make one of your armatures worse?
I'll think about it. I'll think about it.
You think on that.
Yeah, I'll think on it.
Hopefully there's not an enhancement you could do instead.
It better not be.
The Morax, despair.
Yeah, it's terrible, man.
It's unfortunate. But also, I don't really want to paint a resin war dog. I don't even want to paint it. That's how bad it is.
That is rip to a homie, but someone's got to be down there.
All right, and then the last two Imperial armor models are the Magaera and the Styrix. Both of these have a little something going on, but just maybe not a lot of something going on. They're both abhorrent class knights. They actually do get the 5-up invulnerable save in combat, which is better than normal for the abhorrent class knights, but they don't really bring anything particularly new and exciting, and then they cost more than the other abhorrent class knights. And so again,
It's the Moirax problem.
it's the Morax problem. It's like better than the Morax because there is one redeeming quality instead of 0 redeeming qualities. However, a Styrix is the same gun as an Abominant, has a 5-up invulnerable in combat, doesn't do any battle shock shenanigans, and also costs more than the Abominant.
Yeah, it's a bad time.
It's a bad time. Like the whole appeal of the unreliable Abominant is that it's the cheap one, so you can take 3.
And it doesn't do the Mortals aura, I assume, as well? No. Yeah, that would be good.
That would be good, but alas, the Magaera I think is actually, the Styrix is interesting because it has a cool cannon. The Magaera does not have a cool cannon. It's just too low strength on the weapon to be anything, if I'm being honest.
Was it like strength 7?
Yeah, it's like strength, the lightning cannon, it's like, I think it's like strength 7 or 8. It's not enough to threaten vehicles, and it's sustained 2, but there's no rerolls, there's no anything there. The Rad Cleanser is only damage 1, it's anti-infantry 2+, but it's AP like 0. And so it's just a flamer that wounds infantry on 2s.
Okay, that's okay. I'm not going to pay 300 plus points for this thing.
Exactly. And so unfortunately, I think that both of those last 2 abhorrent knights, they're also going to fall into despair.
That's tragic, is what it is.
It's tragic. But on the plus side, I don't want to buy and paint resin models anymore. Once we got that plastic Cerastus kit, I don't want to ever build a resin knight again.
That's fair. So they don't fall into, but I want to paint it too.
No, because they're resin, and I already did 3 loyal Magaeras. That was a lot of work. I don't want to do that again. So we don't even want to paint it. That is going to be all of the units on the tier list today. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Hopefully you really enjoyed this video. If you liked the video, please like the video, share with your friends, leave a comment. Tell us which of these knights you think we are under or overrating. Do you think the Chaos Knight Lancer is the best thing since sliced bread? Tell us about it. Go win a GT with it and make fun of us. Either way, we hope to see you back here on the channel. Make sure you subscribe to get notified. As well, if you want to see even more Chaos Knight goodness, like State of the Faction Chaos Knights, or a bunch of games that I've played with Chaos Knights in this new codex, check out the War Room in the link below. That's thewarroom.vhx.tv, where you can even get a free 3-day trial if you want to check it out. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.